Hi guys and girls, in this video I will tell you about psychology as a science. Psychology, a science that studies mental phenomena, thinking, feelings, will, and human behavior, the exploration of which we find in those phenomena. Mental, a philosophical category that reflects the phenomena of both human and animal, even plant life. Zoopsychology, which studies the phenomena of the elementary psyche, behaviors, cognitive processes in animals, is attributed to both psychological and biological sciences. When we talk about the human psyche, its inherent phenomena, we must remember that it is structurally and qualitatively different from its evolutionary predecessors. Psychological knowledge has developed since prehistoric times in the magical and mythological traditions. For the first time, as a branch of scientific knowledge, psychology appears in the philosophical teaching of ancient thinkers. In the works of European Arab philosophers and psychians developed the following issues: the nature of perception, the structure of the psycho, the nature of emotions, psychosomatics, thought processes, the nature of dreams and delusions, the nature of relationships, love, friendship, kinship, etc. To date, a significant impact on scientific ideas about the soul, the mental world, has the development of related sciences: medicine, pedagogy, and human practice, art, religion, management, which in turn enjoy the achievements of psychology. The psychic, its nature, limits, principles of existence is still terra incognita for scientific knowledge and is constantly becoming a space of speculation and mystification by charlatans. The mental also remains the focus of religions, which assert its universality and primacy over the physical world. The mental is the unacquired realm in which we all live regardless of age, gender, profession, education. Each of us is a psychologist at the household level. Psychological knowledge is the basis of specific practice. Traditionally, applied psychology is a branch of science focused on the application of psychological knowledge in specific fields of activity: music, political psychology, psychology of education or work. Practical psychology is a field of knowledge and research on the forms and methods of using psychological knowledge by psychologists, consultants, trainers. Practical psychology is divided into psychology agnostics, counseling, correction, psychological assistance. Use of the term. The word psychology appears in the 16th century. It was first used in the title of a book that has not survived but is mentioned in the list of works by the Croatian humanist Marko Marulik. Recognition of the term came to life thanks to the works of Christian Wolff. Psychology empirique and psychology rationalis mentioned in the French encyclopedia. Today, in addition to the name of the system of scientific knowledge, the word psychology and its derivatives are used for a wide range of domestic, professional, social phenomena. In everyday life, psychology is called the world of experiences, motives, relationships. What is the subject of psychological science and is defined by the category of mental. The discipline of psychology is taught worldwide to both future psychologists and students of related disciplines. In Ukraine since 1998, psychology is part of the secondary school curriculum. About psychologism, there speak in cases when psychology explains phenomena and facts. In the market of service, there are offers of psychological trainings, tests, consultations, practices that often have no scientific basis but use the brand. Scientific apparatus. For a century and a half, science psychology began to exist independently. There have been disputes over the basic tenets of science. The definition of its subjects by different schools reflected not only the worldwide methodological attitudes of researchers but also had an ideological character, as in the case of Soviet science. Their psychology had to fight for survival because the definition of the psyche as a function of the brain was approved and sanctified by the CPSU. At the same time, there was psychophysiology, which studied the functions of the brain. On the other hand, the Procrustean band did not include research, for example, on the content of subjective experience. Patterns of mental images, which are in no way explained by the chemical composition of neurohormones or the peculiarities of the nerve impulse. The problems of European and American scientists were somewhat different. Here he gained more and more influence positivism, which questioned the scientific methods of this descriptive and structural psychology. An obedient response to this criticism was the emergence of behavioral psychology, which proclaimed consciousness a remnant of scholastic science and developed the meaning of psychology as a science of man in all its complexity and unequiness of the latter. On the other wing, marginal currents emerged that rejected scientific methods, proclaiming psychological theory and practice as free art. Today, the following definition seems to be a compromise. Psychology is the science of a set of psychological phenomena and human behavior, higher animals, which is explained on the basis of these phenomena. Thus, the object of science is man, a being endowed with consciousness and the inner subjective world. The study of the animal psyche belongs most importantly the biological sciences, and in psychology such knowledge is used as material for comparison. The shortest definition of a subject of science could be psychic or mental, but it would be wrong to expansive. The catalog of the mental is considered by the philosophical ontology, and with such products of the psyche as human relations, creativity, deal with sociology and art history. Specific to psychology is the study of mental phenomena that govern human activities and relationships. The basic categories of domestic psychology, as defined by Petrovsky and Yarosnevsky, are image. The image becomes the content of mental processes. It is the system of image that forms consequences. Actions common in purpose together constitute activities, related concepts, behavior, reaction. Motive. Related concepts in cognitive value motivation. Those categories above are inherent in many living beings, and the following are specifically human: attitude, activity, experience, activity, communication, personality. Moreover, the last three have a special status of mental and extra-psychological, as those that cover the most complex form of mental reality, the consideration of which even goes beyond psychology. In total, the authors propose 24 categories which, in their opinion, form the framework of psychological cognition. The task of psychology, along with the study of psychological facts and patterns, is to establish the mechanisms of psychological activity. This means studying the work of specific anatomical and psychological devices that carry out a particular mental process. Here, psychological is faced with a number of sciences: medicine, psychology, biophysics, biochemistry, cybernetics, and more. And more the task of science: study of individual qualities, patterns, and ways of their formation in modern conditions. Study of the impact of leading activities on the human psyche, interpersonal and intergroup relationships. Determining the psychological means of influencing the team on the individual and ways to protect against such influences. Establishing patterns of dynamics of working capacity. Determination of measures and means of psychological comfort for work and life. Definition of informative methods of diagnosis and correction. Study of the lives of psychological training. Method of psychology. Method, a set of methods or operations that are aimed at solving a specific problem. Basic cognitive methods of psychology: observation and self-observation, experiment, psychology, agnostic methods, methods of active psychological influence, psychological counseling, psychological correction, psychological training, free psychotherapy, and rehabilitation. History of the development of psychological knowledge. It is common to talk about the history of psychology in the context of Western culture, although the scientific thought of the Arab world, India, East Asia, has its own long traditions and uneducated achievements in the theory and practice of mental activity. There are several approaches to the periodization of the development of psychology. As a science is a modern positivist sense of the word, it was formed at the end of the 19th century when in 1879 the laboratory of experimental psychology founded by W. Wundt in Leipzig began its work. From this point of view, the study of past millennia is a prehistory of science. The Gnostic tradition in the matter is different from the Western one. M.G. Jaruzelski, V.A. Romanets, and other historians of psychology prefer to see their subject in a broader time frame, so their works are called History of Psychology of the Ancient World and the Middle Ages, History of Psychology of the Renaissance, and more. Thus, the first teaching and practice of mental activity originated in prehistoric times within the magical tradition and animistic cults. For thousands of years, people have thought of mental phenomena as a manifestation of the soul, a component of the human being who controls the body. This view is inherent in modern religious and idealistic currents, which proclaim the soul as the intangible essence of man. From antiquity to the 19th century. Ancient times. In ancient times, psychology originated and developed as a doctrine of the soul. The first ancient Greek philosophers held materialist views on the nature of the soul. Heraclitus taught that the soul is material and is one of the transient states of the eternally moving and ever-changing basis of material existence. Fire. Democritus believed that a living being differs from an inanimate one mainly in two properties, movement and sensation. He argued that the soul is a moving principle. There is a special kind of fire and warmth and consists of spherical fiery, easily mobile atoms, the smallest indivisible particles of matter. Unlike Heraclitus, he behind the immortality of the soul. The soul, he taught, is mortal, it is destroyed with the body. According to the teaching of Lucretius, the soul of man cannot be considered as something disembodied. This statement is incorrect because disembodied can be only one way. Everything else consists of material atoms. The source of knowledge is the sensory influence of things one on the bodily soul of man. However, not every external action causes a feeling. For this, it must reach a certain strength. For example, he considers the process of perception as follows: from external objects are separated material, very small edges which affect the senses and throughout them to the deeper parts of the soul. As a result, a person receives an image of the object that affects him. In the process of perception, there is a constant refinement and a comparison in accordance with the continuous influences from external objects. Those material images received by the soul are preserved after the causation of perception, and the image of such things seem to overlap. Their individual features are erased, they acquire a general character, becoming a concept of things. That is all. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.